Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Mike Tomlin gets candid on attention. George Pickens will see a Steelers top WR. Expectations are very high for Pittsburgh Steelers third-year wide receiver George Pickens in 2024. He's the only wideout on the team's roster who had more than 210 receiving yards last season. With Pickens clearly the best outside threat in Pittsburgh's offense, opposing defenses are likely to game plan a way to stop or at least slow down the 23-year-old. Last year, when Pickens hasn't been involved in the team's offense, he grew frustrated. But Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin isn't worried about that being an issue in 2024. I think he's grown in all areas, not only in terms of skill relative to his position, and he has a lot of that, but the nuances of the game, Tomlin told reporters on September 3. Getting in and out of cuts, hand selection, and so forth. He's grown in a lot of ways, and then obviously as a human. He's grown in the ways that you expect young guys to grow in terms of knowledge of the game, and what it means to be a professional and how to conduct yourself. When asked specifically about how Pickens will deal with the extra attention he is likely to receive from opposing defenses, at first, Tomlin deflected the question. "I think George has gotten attention all of his life as it pertains to football," Tomlin said. "I think that's nothing new to him." But to a follow-up question about if he was confident Pickens will handle that extra attention in a positive way, Tomlin answered, "Absolutely." Pickens and the Steelers received a little taste of the young wideout as the team's #1 outside target last year when Diontae Jhonson was sidelined because of injury. Jhonson missed weeks 2 to 5, and during that stretch, Pickens posted 17 catches for 357 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had at least 75 yards in 3 of those 4 contests. Pickens had a lot more games where he wasn't involved on offense when Jhonson was in the lineup. The Steelers struggled offensively last season, particularly in the passing game. So, there weren't a lot of targets for both Jhonson and Pickens. In the final 12 games of the season, Jhonson averaged 6.8 targets and 4 catches per game. Pickens registered 5.5 targets and 3.4 catches per contest during the same stretch. Pickens, though, made the most of his opportunities. He led the NFL with 18.1 yards per reception. Without Jhonson, who the Steelers traded to the Carolina Panthers, Pickens will undoubtedly see more double coverage. In all likelihood, his yards per catch average will drop. But his targets, catches, and overall yards are still likely to increase, especially if he's grown as Tomlin suggested. The Athletic named Pittsburgh's wide receiver depth its biggest concern entering the 2024 season. It's not hard to see why. The Steelers will start Van Jefferson opposite Pickens in Week 1. Breaking: Pittsburgh Steelers re-signed 6x Pro Bowl wrecking ball defender to record-breaking contract. The franchise is still in a state of QB limbo since the departure of 2x Super Bowl champion, Ben Roethlisberger, having officially cut ties with disappointing 2022 first-round pick, Kenny Pickett, this offseason. With the regular season finally at the precipice of recommencing once again, Pittsburgh's defense will thus once again likely be the star of the show, headed by ex-Defensive Player of the Year, T.J. Watt. A major point of this defense over the past decade-plus has been defensive tackle, Cameron Hayward, who despite his age has remained a very productive member of the Steelers' notoriously tough D. As a result, Pittsburgh have felt it prudent to keep him on the side for the foreseeable future, per Jeremy Fowler. This is believed to be the biggest deal ever for a defensive player aged 35 or above. The 35-year-old stalwart has been the primary leader on defense for the past few years in Pittsburgh, and his influence has even extended to the draft room, where he put in a good word for his brother Connor, who the Steelers selected in the 6th round of the 2022 NFL Draft. Ultimately, $15 million APY, average per year, is no longer an elite-level contract, considering the amounts given to top-tier studs like the Kansas City Chiefs' Chris Jones, who recently signed a 5-year deal worth over $158 million. Equally, if Hayward's play declines further, it is likely that the roadblocks to getting out of his contract will not be substantial, particularly given that only around a third of his total deal, $16 million, is guaranteed. Some might argue that Pittsburgh might have been better off leaving a further extension until the end of the year, rather than preemptively re-signing him, but evidently the Steelers see themselves as bona fide contenders for the next couple of years, which, if they believe in Russ, could well be a reality. And, of course, it's not as if dynamic three techniques grow on trees either. Ex-Steelers WR Diontae Jhonson tries to provide clarity to Panthers fans about his controversial past in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin is a fan of saying the team wants volunteers, not hostages. Often called a player's coach, many felt that Tomlin and the Steelers were all talk as they kept players who verbalized their unhappiness or displayed immature behaviors. Tomlin and the franchise have been criticized for allowing players with toxic behaviors to hang around. Steelers Mike Tomlin speaks with Antonio Brown during the game. This is especially true of the team's wide receivers. From Antonio Brown's early social media antics to Juju Smith-Schuster dancing on opponents' logos, the receivers have frustrated fans and the media. While the Steelers let both Brown and Smith-Schuster depart the team, they seem to speed up their effort to improve attitudes after the 2023 season with Diontae Jhonson. One thing is quite clear, teams are willing to put up with a lot more if the player in question has talent nearing Brown's level. While Jhonson was solid, he wasn't the same caliber as Brown. The Steelers decided to trade Jhonson to the Carolina Panthers for Diontae Jackson after he became labeled a malcontent. It is impossible to ignore the immature behaviors Jhonson displayed. He nearly came to blows with teammate Minkah Fitzpatrick and had to be separated. He appeared to be lazy on the field and was criticized for throwing temper tantrums over his lack of targets. There were concerns that his negative behaviors sparked similar tendencies in his younger teammate, George Pickens. Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers Diontae Johnson, 18, and George Pickens, 14. Ben Roethlisberger, a Steelers legend's 18-year journey now, with the Panthers, Jhonson is hoping to show fans that he was not the issue. In Pittsburgh, he blamed everyone from the coordinator to the quarterback for games not going his way. He told the media Monday per an X video from Sheena Quick that he wants the Carolina fans to know he isn't that negative guy. "I feel like people say I'm a diva, and my attitude is up and down," shared Jhonson. "But sometimes players get misunderstood. Just want to show that I'm a great player, with a great attitude, and I come with great energy every day, with a smile on my face, helping the guys get better around me." Johnson's time in the Steel City was far from all bad. He was a significant contributor on offense. While some felt he was a cancer in the locker room, he was an excellent route runner. Unfortunately for him, some dropped passes got blown out of proportion. He really didn't drop many more than other top receivers in the league, but his timing was so bad, it made them stand out. It felt like Jhonson always dropped the ball when the game or a drive was on the line. Former Steelers players, Kenny Pickett and Diontae Johnson, celebrate his first touchdown in 22 games. He took those drops seriously, and reports came out that he spent time after practice every day working with equipment staff to catch tennis balls. Just as it seemed he had cured his case of the dropsies, he could not find the end zone. After having a career-high 8 touchdowns in 2021, he didn't score even a single touchdown in 2022. During his final season in Pittsburgh, he only played in 13 games because of an injury, scoring 5 times. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Diontae Johnson? Leave your opinion in the comments.